This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Brought to you by Mint Mobile. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Thursday, August 15th, 2024, and I've got the lovely Anshel Sag here with me again. Hi, Anshel, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
I'm pretty good. This is Pixel Event Week, or Made by Google Week, as it is. You were there. Google did not invite me. So I'd love to kind of pick your brain about, what you saw, what your thoughts are. Do you think the overarching question I have is, do you think Google is finally getting hardware right? And does it even matter? And in the context of the recent, news about the antitrust stuff, that, where are we going and all that stuff. So what's your kind of initial summary thought on this whole thing?
It was my first event at a Google on-site on campus. Usually I've gone to New York events.
Right.
So it was interesting to be on site, be there in person. They clearly prepared for this quite a bit. There was like a whole stage set up, and, they had all of their Pixel influencers right front and center. I luckily came with pretty good camera equipment, so I got really good shots from where I was sitting. But I think, this felt the most cohesive I have ever seen Google.
Okay.
It felt like, they had their hardware and software and even some of their apps like kind of working together, and it didn't feel as disjointed as Google often does. And I felt like they did a much better job of communicating like what AI is doing and why AI is relevant, even though like realistically they've actually been using AI for quite some time. And that for them, AI is nothing new. It's just they just need to do a better job of communicating it and marketing it and making it more relevant and accessible.
Yeah, I feel like having gone to Google events in the past, I think the last one I was actually officially invited to was the Pixel 4 event. They've always been pretty well organized. It's just that, contrasting that with Google I/O, where it can be really all over the place, and because they have to cover so much more and it's much more developer centric, I think that their events are generally pretty good. But you're right, it's really hard for them right now because there's so much emphasis on AI. And, in fact, I think The Verge wrote an article saying like, really, this is an AI event, but, designed to sell pixels, right? Like the AI drives the pixel hardware, right? Was that your feeling too?
I think yes, but I would say my frame of view is that it's more of like a why pixel event, and the why is AI, because realistically, if you look at like what Google is doing, a lot of these features on like, let's say Gemini Live, those are actually already running on other devices other than Pixel. But there are certain features that are like Pixel first or Pixel only, and that a lot of those are AI. So like they have to kind of talk up AI to justify the AI only features on Pixel.
Right.
And yeah, I think, like there's like a couple features there that just seem like they are AI driven, but they are still also trying to drive Pixel. But ultimately, I view Pixel as Google's way of pushing its beliefs on AI for its OEMs, and to get them on board with certain concepts and features, and to generate a certain level of FOMO that they might otherwise not have unless Pixel implements it first.
But I mean, don't you feel that that's also true of what Samsung's doing with Galaxy AI? Like, I mean, like a lot of the features we saw Google announce are features like they are not all the same, but there is, and maybe Google is a little ahead, but I think there is some parity between the feature sets. Same with Apple, intelligence. It's kind of like, I feel like back in the day, Nexus existed to show kind of like a reference design, basically, and the developers had a kind of a raw phone they could use to develop on. That was kind of the reference. And I think Pixel got more commercial, more consumer friendly, and I think that's a great thing. And I think Pixel 6, we talked about that last week with my guest, was really the turning point, I think, to finally, like the 6 series, to finally get to parity with the competition. Awesome. But I do feel that Pixel in the past kind of drove the vision of Android, and now it's driving the vision of Gemini or AI or whatever you want to call it, right?
Well, here's the thing. The vibe I get is that AI is Android and Android is AI. Like,
Okay.
They talked about rebuilding Android from the ground up with AI in mind. So, like, I feel like there's a point where, I do a lot of stuff on the PC side and everyone talks about AI PC. Like, nobody says AI smartphone. Why? Because all smartphones are AI smartphones.
Right, but they have been for a while, even though it wasn't called AI and it wasn't generative. Machine learning has made our photos amazing for a decade at least. So it's
Right.
like, you're right. So let's talk about the hardware a little bit. We have 4 phones. I mean, my audience obviously is pretty tech savvy and they know what's going on here, but you got one. So again, because I wasn't at the event, hello Google. I don't have devices. Some of them are coming because I have been assigned, you know, work by some of my publications to write about some of the products. So stay tuned for that. But this is what, the 9, right? Just the basic 9 that you've got in your hand?
So everybody walked away with at least a 9. Some people walked away with the Pro XL as well.
Okay.
I don't know where those decisions are made. I'm hoping to get my hands on a Pro 9 Fold.
Yeah, me too. So I'm hoping to write a story for Forbes comparing the Galaxy S24 Ultra with the Pixel 9 Pro XL. And then I'm hoping to write a review for Hot Hardware of the folding phone because I've reviewed the Z Fold 6 that went up a couple of weeks ago. And then I did the OnePlus Open. So, you'll get a pretty even distribution of the latest folding phones from me if you read all 3 reviews.
And I have the old Fold too. So I'll have the original
I do have
Pixel
the old
Fold.
Pixel Fold as well. Yeah. So, here's my thoughts. Like, first of all, I'm excited by the new design. Like, I think that at first I was a little put off because I was like, it's too iPhone-like. So is Samsung with the S23 and 24 series, where they went slab-sided. But at least, unlike Samsung, Apple still has a, very obvious camera pod, and so does Google. Like that, Bender style camera pod that
Yeah, it's there.
yeah. So, I think that for Pixel, even though it's slab-sided now and much more rounded corners, it looks like more like an iPhone from the front. From the back, you can't mistake it. Same as you
No.
can't mistake an iPhone. And kind of unfortunately can mistake a Samsung for something else because they're so generic in the back. I mean, if you're North America based, you probably will just immediately say Samsung. But I think if you compare to like some of the Chinese phones, there's a lot of resemblance with the Samsung. So I was a little annoyed with that. But now that I've seen the phone, I mean, I haven't held one yet, but I've seen the close-ups and videos and in people's hands. And I'm like, okay, this is cohesive. And I'm hearing from various people that the build quality is significantly better. And I think that's been true like since 6, right? 6 was meh, 7 got better, 8, my 8 Pro is pretty well made, and I think 9 is probably going to be one step up, right?
Yeah, I mean, I really liked the 8 Pro. I have an 8A somewhere here. I don't know what I did with it. Oh, it's right over there. So I've got the old 7 Pro. My 8 Pro is somewhere. This is the 8A. The 8A.
The AA is really nice.
It feels like it looks and feels very similar to the 7 Pro.
Yeah.
So, and the 8 Pro definitely felt like a step up. But I will say, having held this quite a bit in the last couple days, it really does feel like an iPhone in your hand, like in terms of hand feel. It also feels really premium, which an iPhone definitely is. However, if you look closely on the top, just for North America, millimeter wave antenna. And I think it's a great device. Like, I don't think there's any issue with it being of that tier. And I think it's going to, I don't know if we'll see many switchers, but if there's a device to get people to switch from iPhone, it is going to be a Pixel.
Yeah. We still have a SIM tray, right, this year?
Yeah, SIM tray right down there.
Good. That's one thing I even didn't think about until you started showing me the edges of the phone. I was like, oh,
But
okay.
it feels great. No
And so
complaints on
from
the
what I also
build
gather,
quality.
the Pixel 9 Pro is physically identical to the point where you can use the same cases as the Pixel 9.
I believe so. I believe it's literally same screen size, everything.
Yeah, if you look on I think on the website, the cases are the same for both. Of course, then
Which is
there's
kind of cool.
yeah, super cool actually, pretty smart. And then of course you get the Pixel 9 Pro XL, which is basically the same as the old Pros, but going back to the 3XL and the 4XL, pretty clever to go back with that nomenclature rather than going like Ultra or Max or whatever. I like that Google's kind of playing in their own world there. And I'm personally, if I had to pick one of these, it would be the 9 Pro XL since I'm coming from an 8 Pro and I'm used to that. But
Sure.
here's the thing that I've been saying for 2 podcasts now. And I think that's why I'm really eager to do this review for Hot Hardware. The Pixel 9 Pro Fold, I think, might be the first time I can merge 2 phones that I carry with me all the time, which are a folding book style and a flagship Pixel, because I have the OnePlus Open in my other pocket still. And so my 2 primaries, like an iPhone I always have, it's in my bag usually for video, if I need to test something for Apple, like whatever, but I don't daily drive it really. And that's also why I'm so glad that I have a Canadian iPhone 15 Pro Max that has the SIM tray, because so much easier to swap if I really need to test it. But yeah, so what is your thoughts on handling that phone? It's obviously going to be lighter than the Pixel Fold, but that was too heavy.
It was actually surprisingly thin.
Yeah.
I took some pictures. It's thinner.
Are we talking
than the old
OnePlus
Fold.
Open thin, or are we talking like Magic V3 Honor thin?
Somewhere in between.
Okay, wow.
So it is quite thin. The hand feels good. My only gripe that I have so far is that it's not the same camera configuration as the Pro. It's a slightly degraded.
But that was the
camera
case last year
configuration.
too, right?
Yep. The one thing that I do like is it's a 2 generation upgrade on the Tensor, from a Tensor 2 to a Tensor 4.
Yeah.
And then I'm not totally in love. And Ben pointed this out in the pictures he saw, but I also noticed it before yesterday. There's a bit too much bezel on the inside where the hinge is when you have it closed.
Yeah.
It's just like, I got used to the Open where it's just all screen.
Yeah.
And that's going to have to be something that they do next generation. But I don't think it's a total deal breaker. I think that's a cosmetic, thing that can be improved upon with hinge and display design. But I'm excited because for similar reasons, like I have the OnePlus Open. It almost did it for me, but it didn't quite become a daily for me. And it's the foldable I do carry around with me. And I think that this might be the phone that I actually converge all my Android devices under one roof. I do always carry an iPhone with me because I dual carry everything. But I might actually ditch my S24 Ultra for it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love Samsung phones. I think they're high quality. I recommend them, but they're not for me because of One UI. I just don't like. I'm such a stock Android person, and I know Pixel has changed quite a ways away from stock over the years. But like, look, if you pick up a Nothing phone, or you pick up a Moto, or you pick up a Pixel, it feels relatively the same. It feels relatively familiar. You go to Oxygen OS and Color OS and some of the other Chinese OSs, and it feels a little further detached. And I feel that's where also Galaxy is. Like One UI kind of feels like a little further removed from, to me, the 3 poster children that are closest to stock, which are Pixel, Moto, and Nothing right now. And then, of course, you have Sony if you really want to be picky, because they're pretty close to stock. But overall, I think that Sony is missing some of the embellishments that are really needed. So for me, Samsung's always also in my bag, but it's not my primary ever. And so I want a Pixel as my main, and I want a folding phone as my main. So I'm thinking this could be, the one time that I finally get, to have my cake and eat it too. So I'm actually really excited about that. Does it have wireless charging? Because the Open doesn't. And
I think it does.
The Fold last year, the Pixel Fold did. So I'm kind of curious. It probably does,
I'm
right?
pretty sure. I'm fairly certain it does. I haven't had a chance to test that part.
I like how so many more like Moto is really starting to push the wireless charging. Like you're getting it on some like even budget G series now. And of course, we're seeing it on Pixel all the way to the A series now as two generations. And it's exciting to me because, a lot of the Chinese phones still don't have that. And from what I hear for next year, at least on BBK land, a lot of the phones are going to 6,000 milliamp batteries with Snapdragon 8 Gen 4 and
Which is
might be
huge.
losing wireless charging because of thickness. And that's like, no, that's not the direction. Like nobody needs 6,000 milliamp hour unless the 8 Gen 4 is a complete hog and we don't know that yet. Like, you know, I'm a little concerned about that, honestly. But here's the thing about Pixel, right? And you'll probably agree with me. Tensor is not the poster child for the best, processing power and battery life and all that. So I kind of go into it knowing that, and I'm okay with it. It's improved, as you said, because the original Pixel Fold was delayed, right? And is essentially 2 generations old. So this is nice to see them jump this far ahead and catch up so quickly.
And what I was going to say is one thing I like about this launch was like everything aligned nicely. The watch, the buds, the phones, the foldable, it all came together at once. And you didn't have like this weird smattering of things coming out at different times.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me about the Fold a little more. One of the things about the Open that I really love is in the inner display, the main screen, when you open it, the crease is very mild, and more importantly, there's this anti-reflective coating, kind of like what the S24 Ultra has, that is kind of a complete killer awesomeness. Like for me, the Pixel Fold original was super reflective and had a really pronounced crease. Have they improved? Like I don't expect it to be OnePlus Open level, but have they improved
It's
that
not
at
there
all?
yet. I would say there's definitely still a crease. It's not quite as good as the Open, but I would say it's less pronounced than the original.
Hmm.
So they've made improvements, but they've still got room for improvement on the hinge design for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge, right? Like, I still feel like I just reviewed the Z Fold 6, and like that was one of the things that dinged it for us. Like, too reflective, too much of a crease. Like, I kind of feel like I can forgive Google for that, but after seeing what OnePlus and Oppo did last year, like how did Samsung not, and they proved
Pull it
everything
off.
else, it's thinner and everything, but like how did they miss on that after being what Gen 6 for them, right? Like it's like they should be leading that pack right now. And it's interesting. It's interesting to me too that the Honor Magic V3 and the Xiaomi Mix Fold 4 is, so thin. They're both so thin. The V3 is just like, I haven't seen it, but I've seen photos like barely thicker than the USB-C port on both of those phones, which is crazy. So I think that's where we're headed. And I'm surprised Samsung isn't playing in that field yet. Like,
I think they got a little complacent.
well, yeah, I think that they're not quite as popular in China, so they don't necessarily compete there. And then,
Yep.
of course, they're status quo here in North America. They don't have to worry about it. They know that OnePlus doesn't sell any phones in comparison. Like, let's be real, right? Have you
Yep.
seen a OnePlus open in the wild that wasn't in one of our pockets?
I have.
Whoa.
I have. However, I also know that like nobody's buying those in carrier stores, and that's the number one place people buy phones.
Speaking of which, I found out this morning that the folding phone from Google is not going to be available through AT&T, only T-Mobile and Verizon.
Interesting.
And AT&T is actually continuing to sell the original Google Pixel Fold. Weird.
Very.
I guess they're not on board.
Someone in sales didn't agree with someone else in sales.
Well, sorry if you're an AT&T customer, but here again, I want to suggest what I always say: never buy your phones from carriers unless you can get a super crazy deal or something, and then immediately after that 60-day period, get it unlocked and call it a day. Because
There's
if
a lot
you
of
don't get that
aggressive.
phone unlocked, here's the thing: you can trade. Yes, you can trade it in locked, and you'll get a decent value, but if you can sell it privately to someone 2 years down the road and it's unlocked, you probably get even more money. So,
Agreed.
something to think about.
It's nice because I've been getting a lot of my Pixels from carriers when I wasn't getting devices from Google.
Yeah,
And getting an unlocked version is always nice.
exactly.
George
So, yeah.
from Verizon already activated this for me.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so I think the lineup of phones is pretty solid. I like the design. I think the specs are great. It's really nice to see a pro level phone that's smaller. For a lot of people, that's going to be a huge deal. Those of you with a Pixel 5, it's time to upgrade. I'm not joking. I went from a Pixel 3 XL to a 6 because the 4 I didn't like because of the forehead with the Soli stuff in it, and the fact that you couldn't use fingerprint for ID for anything, and none of the banking apps or anything worked with that.
You know that this is a Sonic Qualcomm.
Yeah, it's a Sonic Qualcomm fingerprint sensor. Some people are very upset about that because apparently they don't like them. I hear that for some people it doesn't work as well as the optical. And they know this because they've had issues with Samsung.
What's interesting is it doesn't have wake to unlock. So if the screen is off, you can't just put your fingerprint on it and it'll unlock and turn on like you do on the Samsung. So I hope that's just like a software feature that they have to enable. But it should just be like on Samsung where screen is off, you just put your finger over and it like immediately unlocks and turns on.
Yeah. One of the things I like ever since Pixel 8 series, all of it, including 8A, the Face ID actually unlocks your Google Pay, which is, and it's not using a time of flight sensor, which is kind of crazy. So they've managed to develop a Face ID basically with a regular camera, which is probably very AI heavy. But I love it. I think it's one of my favorite features about my Pixel 8 Pro. And then now that I have a Pixel 8A that I just got from Team Pixel a while back, like it's the same. I was really surprised. I didn't think that would trickle down all the way to to the baby one.
I was really impressed with this.
It's such a great phone. I think that if you're looking for, something on a budget right now and you can stretch it to 500, that the 8A is like in North America, there's nothing like that. You just like, it's the best thing ever because it supports everything you need it to support. It's got all the carriers, all the good stuff. Just great phone. Really great phone. All right. So let's talk about AI. Can you walk us through some of the AI features that they kind of really put a lot of their marketing weight into during this event? Because, we already have a lot of Pixel AI features from last year. Some of them were announced last year and are finally available supposedly this year, which is kind of funny. But I'm talking about some of the camera features, some of the other things. Tell us quickly, give us a rundown, because that's a part that I'm a little blindsided on and not clear on.
Sure. So the big one was obviously Gemini Live, which was not exclusive to Pixel. There are other devices that are getting it that have Gemini advanced capabilities. So Samsung and I believe Motorola are the two top. S24 and I think the Razr Plus. I have both of those.
Right, the Razrs. Here. Yeah. They announced that when we got the Razrs.
So they demoed those on stage while they were talking about Gemini Live.
So what is Gemini Live?
So it's like basically you activate it. And it's a conversational.
Oh, so AI. It's the assistant, the way we're thinking of an assistant. But does it still have the issues that Gemini had in the betas that I used, where it doesn't control things very well with the home automation? Like
that's still a problem, and that is probably the biggest problem I think they have is Gemini is still separate from Assistant in the sense that Assistant is what does all your home control stuff. So I feel like they haven't finished the unification, and they have to fix that.
That is such a Google thing. It sounds like the Fitbit Google Fit thing. Why they still have separate apps for that? Crazy. Well, I hope
they also have a lot of regulations to deal with in that sense.
Well, but I think that I have been like my Pixel 8 Pro has prompted me many times to switch over to Gemini Live, I guess, because I didn't know it was called Gemini Live. I thought it was just Gemini, and I've said no because I'm like, no, I need my home automation stuff to work. Until you fix that, I won't switch. And apparently, even though Gemini Live is the default on the Pixel 9, you can downgrade to Assistant. There's a setting in there supposedly. So those of you out there who are freaking out about it, don't let that stop you from buying a Pixel 9.
Other AI features, there's an AI weather. That's like a reworked version of the weather app. There's a lot of camera features. So they're doing a night shot version of Panorama, and they've completely redone Panorama so that it's more like instead of shooting like when you move pan side to side to do it, it's more like when you were doing those 360 domes.
Oh yeah.
So you shoot like that now. I haven't really had a chance to do that much, so I can't really talk about it. Plus, I'm not allowed to. And then other AI features are the one where you can insert yourself into a photo. And,
two people can take the same photo from the same viewpoint with the two people separately in the shot and combine it into one. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Also, reimagine is a thing. Apparently, you can select
Yes.
something in the Magic Editor, and instead of deleting it or moving it, you can now say replace this with Super Mario, and it just does
So
it.
what they've done is they've just basically taken the editing and accelerated it with Gen AI, right? So they're a lot. They've just made it a little bit more assisted in editing, and then you look at other features, and they're trying to just inject AI where they can. I'm trying to think of where else I
How
remember
is it implemented in
them
the
talking.
weather? What are they doing with the weather that needs AI?
It's more of a more aware of your location and what you prefer, and you can like kind of configure what gets shown to you
Got it.
based on what you care about, and whether or not you care about like the UV index, or if you care about the humidity, or if you care about the wind, depending on like if you're a surfer, you probably care more about the wind and the surf than you do about
Right.
the UV index, those kinds of things.
Oh,
I
very
don't think
cool.
it's that big of a deal, but it's nice to have a little bit more customization. And yeah, I think, well, what I would like to see them do more of. Oh, there was also they're doing video boost, right?
Yeah, yeah.
With 4K to 8K, but you have to have 4K as the base resolution, and then it will upsample it. And they were talking about how they're also going to improve low light with video boost as well. So they'll basically improve the lighting afterwards, not on device, but they will use
Yeah, did
Tensor
they do that
in the
last year
cloud.
too for the 8 Pro already? I thought that was
I think
available.
so, but I think they kind
It's
of
better.
enhanced.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they just
Very
like
cool.
enhanced the capability, and I don't know if they're ever going to launch the Zoom
Yeah, they said they
enhance.
might. I saw varying reports on that. But yeah, they announced that last year with the 8 Pro in the fall or the 8 series. And then it's still not officially out. So
And there's a screenshots app which didn't actually populate on my phone until today. So that's like basically user guided version of Recall where you choose what you want to save, and then you can always search it, using
oh,
AI
that's a
to
great way to
find
sell
text.
storage on their servers.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm already a sucker because I'm already paying for the AI advanced with 2 terabyte, and I'm already halfway through. And with a newborn, I'm already chewing through photo storage like a mofo. So I'm gonna have to probably upgrade my storage soon.
Yeah. So that's pretty comprehensive. Is there anything else that they announced that was AI related or any feature that you thought was cool and stood out?
They did do some stuff with the buds.
Yeah, let's talk about the buds.
The buds have their own AI processor on them. They said that they did this because they wanted to have improved noise cancellation, better audio quality, and they wanted to have on-device AI. So you can basically power Gemini Live through the buds. What you do is you press the buds and you say "Let's talk," and then it will activate Gemini Live on your device, and you can just talk to it without having to
Just
have your
like
phone out.
her. And that didn't end well, though.
Oh yeah,
That did not end well. Joanna actually interviewed Osterlo about this and said, so just like the film, right? Do you know how that ends? He was a little embarrassed. It was funny. But yeah, those are cool. So have you handled the buds? Like I like the
yes,
Google Pixel buds in general. They sound good. They work well. They're comfortable. But I'm not. They're never my go-to. There's always something I
same.
don't like about them. How they
I'm I
how
like them
have
a
they
lot
improved?
more.
Yeah. What's
I
better?
mean, the form factor is massively different. It's not like that. I don't know what to call it, like a bulky earbud. It's more of like a cone shape almost with a fin on it. So if you want the more tight fit, you just rotate them and they like kind of tighten themselves in. The ANC was good. Audio quality, I heard listen to literally one song, so I can't really speak to the audio quality, but it was good. It sounded good, and yeah, obviously it has a lot of AI capabilities. But I think for me, I want to really see like if I have Pixel Buds with the watch plus the phone, like how tight and how good is that experience? Because I feel like this may be the first time ever where they really have great earbuds, great watch, and a great phone. And I can't really remember there ever being a time when they were all that consistently good.
Yeah, so actually, I'm super excited about the fact that they finally have a 45 millimeter size watch, a larger for us big
Yes.
wristed people. I'm wearing the Galaxy Watch Ultra right now. As you can see, this is a big watch, and look, it's perfect on my wrist, right? So, like, I need something a little chunkier, and
Yes.
the last two
I've
Pixel
worn it.
watches, I actually skipped even taking the Pixel Watch 2 out of the box that I got because I was like, I don't want a small
I didn't
watch. Like,
bother.
it's just, I tried the first one because I was really curious about what they were going to deliver. And then the other
Same.
thing that put me off, and I know it hasn't changed and I can get over it, but is the fact that the Pixel Watch 2 was not wireless charging. It was pogo pins. And I'm never a big fan of pogo pins. So,
By the way,
yeah.
the Watch 3 is a dual chip architecture similar to what
Yeah.
the
I
OnePlus
think
Watch
it feels
has.
to me like every Wear OS watch that we've had since the OnePlus Watch 2, because this Ultra is dual processor too. It's got a microcontroller for the always on stuff. I think that's kind of the standard now, and they're all using a slightly different architecture version of it. But I think they all use a W5 chip from Qualcomm, right? All these, including
Yeah, it's
Pixel,
interesting
right?
because I believe so. I asked the question. I have not gotten an answer
I
yet.
think Samsung's actually using some sort of Exynos chip. Now that I think of it.
Samsung is using an Exynos because it's the same Exynos that's in the Watch 7.
Yeah,
So they
yeah.
just scaled up the battery and
So
screen.
this is good to know though, because it means that basically if you get a Wear OS watch today, like a modern recent model, you're going to be getting much better battery life simply because of that, microcontroller that runs the always on and the step counting and all the stuff that, runs in the background basically. And it's a very smart approach. Honestly, I feel like didn't Qualcomm talk about this way back when they announced the W3 chip or whatever? Like we're talking like
Yep.
6 years ago that they had a microcontroller in there, and like we never
Yep.
saw anything
And
come
nobody
out of it.
implemented it.
Yeah, it was
Yep.
so weird.
I think they just
Anyway,
didn't get they didn't get the OEMs on board, and now they are.
yeah. What was
But I
your
will
take
say,
on the watches, like handling them? Are they like if you were compare Gen 1, Gen 2, and Gen 3 of the small watch, like are they pretty much indistinguishable other than like looking at the back for the pogo pins? Or is there like a thinner, is it getting thinner? Like are you noticing any changes like that?
so for me, I didn't even bother with the small one because I only care about the 45
Right,
millimeter.
right, of course. Me too.
But I will say they did improve the bezel. So there's a less bezel.
Oh, right,
I
more
think they said
screen.
20%. So there's less wasted space on that, chassis, on that case. I would say design language wise, it's identical. I did not look at thickness, but I will say, it looks a lot thinner on my wrist than the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic. So I'm excited to wear a thinner watch. Also, I like the first generation looks. I just didn't like everything else.
Yeah, I
Um,
love the looks. Yep,
so
exactly.
I'm really excited for a 45 millimeter with good battery life. Also, what I think was not talked about and most people don't really know about is there's really cool integrations built into the new watch. So there's going to be you can when someone rings your doorbell, you can see it on your watch like that. Like it's a
Like it has to be
direct
a Nest
connection.
doorbell or
Yeah,
okay.
it's a Nest doorbell, but like that's Google ecosystem being the way it should be.
Exactly.
And then there's also you can do night capture from the watch, but I'm not sure that's really new anymore. And then having all of the Fitbit capabilities on device, but also on your phone. But yeah, for me, it's like just battery life alone. Uh, and I skipped the second generation as well, so I'm excited to go Gen 3, have a big screen, and I didn't really have that many complaints about that watch, other than the battery life and some other small things. But I really want to see how it compares because for me, I do a lot of walking, and the Galaxy Watch does impeccable workout
Yeah, it's
detection
good.
and walk
Yeah.
detection,
I wore a
and I want
6
to see if they
Classic
fix that.
for several months last year, so and I didn't dislike it. Like, again, I'm not disliking the Galaxy watches. It's just One UI, the flavor is a bit weird to me. So after a Pixel Watch, it was a bit weird, and now that I'm back on One Plus Watch 2, I'm like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I want. I think for me, the concern I have with the Pixel Watch, and I had that with my first Gen 1, is that because you get this glass surface, like I scratch the crap out of mine. Like I'm always rubbing against some like concrete wall or something. Having a metal frame does kind of alleviate some of that problem. I mean, a lot of the watches I have that have a 2.5D glass have gotten scratched, like the Honor One that and the first Gen One Plus, and it probably will happen with my OnePlus Watch 2. But this is a good example where you have that rim around, the glass to protect it, and I'm less likely to scrape up even though sapphire glass, I guess that's pretty strong. I don't know that I want to see how durable that
I'm not
watch is
afraid.
gonna- You're not afraid.
I'm gonna live dangerously.
Okay. No, because I don't think it's sapphire on the Pixel Watch. They can't make that shape in sapphire. So
Yeah, I don't think so.
it's like Gorilla or something.
It's probably the same Gorilla Glass Victus stuff that they're doing.
So we'll see how it goes. But you're right. I think there's a very cohesive, consistent experience going on here amongst everything that they've announced. And I think you're right. We're going to look back at this like we did at the Pixel 6. It's another turning point because the foldable now is baked. The watches are finally baked. Sounds like the earbuds are baked too. Having choices of pro versus non-pro in the same form factor for the phone, I think is huge. The prices are higher. I'm a little bummed that, wow, it's a lot of money, $11.99 for that Pixel Pro XL, and it wasn't that long ago that I think it was a Pixel 6 Pro or 7 Pro that were like $8.99 or $9.99 or something. So here we are, $100 more, $10.99. It's a lot. I don't know. I think, wouldn't you agree that maybe Google's in a position where they can kind of do that now because Apple's doing it and Samsung's doing it. Plus, there's inflation. Plus, the products are reflecting the kind of experience is significantly improved. So
I also think when you look at what they're doing, I think they're focused on a very narrow part of the market. I don't think they're trying to go super broad with Pixel. I think they want to hone in on a specific market, and that tends to be a more premium market. And I think they want to leave the rest of the market for their OEMs.
You touched on something really interesting, and I kind of initially mentioned it when we were doing the intro, and it's like, where do you position, as an analyst especially, where do you position Google in this North American market and also in the world? I think they're very popular in Japan, for example. Like, do you think that they exist in the consciousness of the average American yet? I don't think they do. Like, OnePlus certainly doesn't.
No, they don't. And I think it's really just...
Do you think this will change it?
No, because it's a marketing thing. Like, ultimately, you have to have the marketing spent to get in front of the the average American. And I feel like they're kind of trying with the NBA partnership. They had Jimmy Butler come on stage.
Yeah.
So I think they're trying to flex those NBA muscles, right?
Yep.
But they got to do more than that. They've got to push harder. But I think their problem is that if they push too hard, they run the risk of pissing off Samsung. But
not only that,
market.
but also look, they don't have AT&T on board for the Fold. Like, there's obviously some disconnect still happening. In the same way as for a while, OnePlus was at T-Mobile, and now OnePlus is only unlocked. Unless you're talking about the Nord N series, which are these budget phones that T-Mobile and Magenta still sell, right? Like, I think it's interesting to me that nobody's managed to crack that duopoly of Apple, Samsung in terms of marketing yet. And I think Google is in the best position. Like, I don't think BBK Group is, because they're not a strong enough presence in this market. But as Google is an American company with billions of dollars, they could totally pull it off somehow, I feel.
I think there's an intentional choice not to. I think that they really want to position Pixel as the pure Google experience for people who want that type of Android experience, but I don't think they want to unseat or replace too many of Samsung's customers or Motorola's customers, because I think that they worry about what the ramifications. Because, like, let's say the Pixel Pro 9 Fold, if that does really well and Samsung sees a dip in their Fold 6 sales, you think Samsung's going to be happy about that?
Probably not, yeah. But honestly, if you put them side by side, in front of someone, like I don't know, man. Like, I think the Fold 6 does not hold a candle to the Pixel Fold Gen 2.
I actually think the Fold 6 holds a candle to the Pixel Fold 2 or whatever I hate saying that name, but the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. I think visually the Samsung looks better, but everything else is better on the Pixel.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think when you're talking about like them positioning themselves as a niche, do you think that it's also kind of like they want to remain the underdog because they don't really need that source of revenue as much as a Samsung or an Apple would? Since they have this entire advertising business and this entire, everything else business. But at the same time, how does that fit into this antitrust lawsuit that's coming, right? Like, I have a feeling that the election coming up is going to decide a lot of things. I don't want to get political, obviously, but I think that it's important to understand that, there's a chance that Microsoft, Google, Apple, and, big companies like that get broken down to smaller pieces. And, if they do, like we might not have quite the cohesiveness that we have today in these ecosystems. In some ways, I think that's a good thing because we'll be able to mix and match a little better. But at the same time, do you think it's going to take the do you think it's going to take the wind out of the sails of the Google hardware effort if that happens?
I actually think it will do the opposite.
Oh.
I think if Google has to divest, the Pixel will become more important to whomever is in control of it, and it will become a unique competitor. They will probably lose maybe some of the early access that they have to Android, but it can't really change that much because I'm sure Samsung gets almost the same level of access.
True.
So,
and we've seen that too, right? With Samsung now getting 7 years of updates and all that stuff, like they're all kind of in sync. And even, Qualcomm's all on board because you got to support those chips for much longer than you used to. So I think that's really interesting.
I think you're right. There is a lot of interesting things that are happening with the FTC rulings, and I think the DOJ is getting involved too. And I just think when you look at like what's happening, nobody knows, but I do feel like there's some kind of almost preparation occurring, like with stuff with Matter and Thread, that maybe you have like a common framework across the entire industry.
Common thread, I would say.
Yes. So that way you can actually have more vendors working with each other and not having to be a closed ecosystem. What a concept. I just think that we might be in a place where things are less tightened up and buttoned up and tightly integrated, but at the same time we have more choices. So like,
yeah, and that's what I'm excited about, to be honest with you. Right.
Maybe every watch can connect to a doorbell and view what's going on.
Or you can finally use a Samsung Watch on an iPhone, or you can finally use, a Apple Watch on a Samsung phone. Like,
yeah, I agree.
I'm all for it because you see, I don't know.
It pushes people to do better, right?
Yeah, I'm older and I've been around the tech world longer, but and I think because I used to be an engineer working in video games where I worked on multiple platforms, and before that, when I did medical research, software coding for medical research, I had to code for all these different flavors of Unix and Mac OS and Windows. I've always had the approach of not pigeonholing myself into a single platform, which I've kind of failed to do over the last few years because Google, right? Like I'm very strong on my Google presence, like with my cloud products and my pixels but I feel more and more like the walls are closing in, and I don't like that. Like would love to use Apple Music on my Pixel, and I have the option to do that, and that's a great thing. But I also would love to use an Apple Watch Ultra with my Pixel, for example, and I can't do that. I can still, use a bunch of open source standards and things for some of my stuff, but most people, they're really locked in. Like if you look at the Apple users, like between messages and like there's so many things that even a lot of our colleagues decided to switch to iPhone because their families were on iPhone and it was just easier for them. And now they can't get out. Hello, Rich Woods. I'm looking at you. But I think So I'm for the whole kind of like, you know, swapping things around and being able to explore other options. It's just going to keep competition healthier. So,
Yeah, ultimately, I agree with you.
but I'm also worried that, we're finally getting to a point where things are gelling so nicely with the Pixel line that I just don't want to break that too much. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I agree that there's a lot more cohesion within Google Land now than there ever has been. But at the same time, I welcome the idea that, people get to choose the best device regardless of what device they have. Pick the best watch and you'll force everybody else to make a better watch. Pick the best phone, you'll push people to, improve on whatever they're doing. So, for the longest time, Apple didn't implement a true telephoto camera on their phones because they didn't feel like they were going to lose customers for it, right? But if people were able to switch their phones easily, they probably would have lost a lot more customers. They would have implemented it faster. So all these kinds of things where it's just like competition is better for everyone, except for the bottom line of these corporations.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, do you have any final thoughts on the whole Pixel event, the whole lineup of products, the AI stuff, before we dive into a couple of news items that are pretty interesting?
Not really anything earth shattering. I'm excited to really give this phone a run for its money. There's some benchmarks I want to run on here compared to against everything else. But I'm not really super expecting the G4 to do anything wild.
No.
And yeah, I've always liked the Pixel camera. My wife loves when I use the portrait mode on it, so I'm probably going to be using this for the foreseeable future. Um, I wish that this configuration with the telephoto was available on the Pro Fold, but it isn't. It's kind of a camera down spec, which is unfortunate at $1,800. But other than that, I do like what they're doing with the camera. And yeah, I'm going to try and take advantage of all the AI and really give it a run for its money.
Yeah, try it out. Yeah. I mean, having experienced the Pixel Fold last year, which has a very similar camera system, I'm not too worried. It was pretty damn solid. Like, and I presume that with G4 and the new ISP, the new AI features, we're going to even see another leap forward in the quality of images coming out of the Pixel 9 Pro Fold compared to the Pixel Fold original, because of, even though the sensors are and the specs are almost identical, we're going to see, I think, an improvement. And like, look at the Pixel 8a. Like, the sensor is kind of potato, yet the results are not at all potato, right? Like, it's really quite impressive, actually. So here's a crazy question for you. Have you played with the 240 watt phones? There's a few out there, primarily through Realme, which is BBK Group, the GT3 and the GT5. Just to give you some perspective, audience, and for you, Anshel, we're at GT6 currently. That's the current. But the GT6 series, there's a number of different variants depending on what market, are not doing 240 watt. They're only doing 100 or 80 or something, which is mostly standard nowadays on BPK Group higher end phones. So the GT3, they skipped the 4 because, China 4. The 5 both had 240 watt charging. The 3 is still the poster child for the 9-minute full charge because it had a 4600 or something milliamp hour battery, whereas the GT5 had a 5000 or something. So it's like Makes 10 sense. Minutes instead of 9 or 10, 11 or something. I don't think it's necessary to have 240 watt charging. Like, I can live with 120, but I think anything below 100, I kind of want more than 100. And I think because you can top off really quickly. Like, if you have 10 minutes, you're home for 10 minutes, you jump in the shower, you need to, go out and do something else, put the phone on the charger, you're going to get 50%, 60%, 70% in that 10 minutes on a 120 watt, right? With 240 watt, you can actually be at 0 and get out of the shower fully charged, which is really cool. Somebody gave me an example, like in India, where a lot of people don't have access to reliable power. A lot of people buy these phones because they can charge at the train station while waiting for their train for 3 minutes on a 240 watt charger, especially at the bottom half of the battery, you get a 50% charge, right? So I can see the point. Now, the reason I'm bringing all this up is because Realme is like, hold my beer, and said, we're going to show a prototype with 320 watt charging, which charges everything in 4 minutes. like, do you think anything below 10 minutes is like, does it matter at this point anymore? Is this just,
No.
we can do it. Let's show off what we can do kind of thing?
I think 5 minutes is kind of the threshold.
Right.
Because 10 minutes, like, that's a lot of time. Like, let's say I call an Uber. I'm not going to get an Uber in 10 minutes. It's going to be 5 minutes.
Right.
So there's like, there are going to be times where you start walking at the door, you look at your battery, you're like, crap, I need a top off. But 10 minutes is a long time to wait for a top off, right? I think 5 minutes is the ideal. Whether it's 5 or 4 minutes, I don't care. But I do think that a 5 minute top off is really nice. And we all know that, like, generally the last 20% is the slowest. So you don't even need to fully charge for it to really be effective. You just need to charge to like 80%, get that first fast big boost. And yeah, I think in terms of 340, I was telling you, like, I think this is very similar to the refresh rates on monitors going up to 500.
Yeah, right.
Like, at a certain age, you don't even like notice that improvement. It's like nearly impossible for most people to see it. I think, to your point, I think there's a certain point where like people don't even notice, the difference between 240 and 340. Like, I think you're kind of splitting hairs at that point. And I think, for me, I'm living in 80 to 100 world land, and I'm pretty happy with that. But I would love to see, I would love to have faster. But 110 is not very conducive to that.
Yeah, so I mean, we get a bit of a 10% or so reduction in performance compared to 220 volt. That's a minor thing, to be honest. I think a lot of the BBK group phones, until they went to 240 at Realme, they maxed out around 150, 160. There's a few phones that are 150. So I have a 240 charger that actually came with my GT5 because that's the US pronged one. My GT3 charger is the Euro pronged one. But I love that charger because it's the size of a MacBook charger, like the normal size MacBook. Now, it doesn't have any foldable prongs or anything. The prongs are just sticking out, which is a little uncomfortable.
Is it a GAN charger?
It's GAN, and it's got, a proprietary USB cable as well. That's a C2C that has, enough thickness to accommodate the currents and voltages involved. But the cool thing about that adapter is that it charges any VOOC compatible phone, from like the original 20 watt OnePlus 6 to anything up to the GT3 and GT5. And so I can do the whole gamut. This press release here, or this announcement from Realme, is interesting because it sounds to me like they're definitely gearing up to make a phone with this 320 watt, because the charger that they're providing is the same size as the 240, and it's a 320, and it has dual USB-C ports on it, and it can do either two phones with VOOC at 150 watt up to 150 watt, or it can do one phone and a laptop up to 65 watt PD, or it can do two laptops at PD, or it can do the whole shebang, one phone connected to one port doing 320 watt. Wow.
And it's 4 batteries, daisy chain.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. Everything that Realme's done, BBK Group, Oppo, OnePlus has done so far has been dual battery, right? Starting with the 80 watt, I think. And then they went up to, this quad battery, which makes sense. Like if you take their 150 watt, 160 watt charging solution that they have, they doubled it, right? By doing twice the batteries. That's basically what we're looking at here. So, I think it's interesting. I'm looking forward to trying it out. I don't know. The other concern I have with 300 watt is that's a lot of juice for one socket, like to plug a charger into. Like, you know what I'm saying? Some old houses are not really designed for that. It's like, think about it, you're plugging in an old gaming PC and for a while you're charging your phone is basically what you're doing, right? Like back in the day when gaming PCs only had 300 watt supplies, now it's like 900 or something on the average. But like, that's a lot of juice, right? So I feel like there's also a kind of diminishing returns there. Like I think anything around 120 to 240, you can kind of still do. 320 starts to be a lie, but I think it's cool. I'm excited about it. I want to also acknowledge that Xiaomi did 300 watt not that long ago, so this is not like hugely surprising.
Earth-shattering. Yeah.
Techno did 260 watt as well, so we want to give them some props for that. And those are phones that shipped for Xiaomi and for Techno. So All right. So the last thing I want to talk about is, I have a feeling that OnePlus shot themselves in the foot with this one. I have the OnePlus Buds Pro 3 right here, and I cannot tell you anything about them spec-wise. I can tell you that there's a DIN Audio partnership, which isn't new because I did that on the previous Pro Buds. I can tell you that the case is this fake leather, which is really nice. And the buds are very much what you'd expect a modern earbud to be. It's like, they look like Apple AirPods, basically. For those of you watching on video on Patreon, I just showed you the stuff. Why I think they shot themselves in the foot is because ultimately it's going to fly under the radar of the Galaxy Buds 3 Pro. And I love the Galaxy Buds 3 Pro. They are some of the best earbuds. They're like, forget the AirPod Pros. Like, AirPods are fine, but they're nothing spectacular compared to some of these earbuds, like the Nothing Ear A as well. There's, a whole bunch now that are really good for the money. And these, I think, kind of fall in that category. But, Samsung is still kind of like in people's minds. Why would OnePlus launch these high-end earbuds and not get the love they deserve? Because I think that between the Pixel event and all the other stuff happening, and then the fact that the buds from Samsung just came out, these are going to fly under the radar. So I'm a little concerned about that. What is your take on the state of earbuds these days?
I think the timing was poor. I'm actually looking forward to these because I liked the Pro 2s.
Me too.
And they sounded good. They had good ANC. They fit in my ears nicely. The only problem was I fell asleep on the plane and one fell out and I lost it.
Oh, no.
Which is a huge bummer. But yeah, I hope to get my hands on these so I can compare them to the Pixel Buds. And maybe one day I'll get my hands on the Samsung Buds. But I'm a little bit behind on the state of earbuds, mostly because I haven't really had a chance to try the latest and greatest from everybody yet.
Yeah, so I mean, these compete with the Samsung Buds and the AirPods Pro from Apple and like the best nothing earbuds, etc. It's just, I can't tell you about them so much yet, but stay tuned. I'll have more about them. What I can say is that I'm excited by what I've experienced so far. And, having also used the Samsung Buds extensively, I think the Samsung Buds for me are definitely super good sounding, but I feel like they're not as comfortable long term. Like initially I was like, oh yeah, these are fantastic. And then I wore them for a longer time and I was like, not as happy as say like the Nothing Buds, the current like Gen 3 ear there, or the Ear A for that matter. They're almost identical in terms of physical design. Like they're so comfortable. And so what I'd love to see is like a combination of the Galaxy sound and the comfort of the Nothing Ear, even though the Nothing Ears sound really good. But, Apple and Samsung kind of have the best noise canceling and stuff right now. So yeah, I think this could be a contender. So stay tuned. And, yeah, just weird timing, just really strange because they just launched a tablet and they also launched some Nord Buds that I have as well, just a month ago.
And a refreshed version of the Open.
Yeah, and the refreshed, the Apex, which we talked about last week, the beautiful crimson color. And then, of course, also the Watch 2R, which is really weird because, I have them side by side right now. As a side little note, you cannot pair two OnePlus watches to a single O-Health app. You can't. On Samsung land, Samsung Health you can connect multiple watches. So in the evening, if you want to wear the regular, watch 7 or 6 classic because you want something a little more classy looking, and the daytime you want to wear your beefy ultra, you can do that. But not with OnePlus. So and the 2R is so similar to the 2. Other than the sapphire glass and the stainless steel body, why is they so similar? I just don't understand the marketing there. It's very interesting. I'm not saying they're bad watches. I like them, but have you played with the 2R at all or no?
But I imagine it's very much a price segment solution.
Yeah, I mean they're more affordable, but spec wise they're identical. Basically, you're losing the stainless steel chassis, and I think it's still sapphire glass. but I'm not sure. And everything else, so you get that awesome microcontroller for the always-on display. The watch face is the same. The display is the same size, same brightness, same features, same battery life. Like, it's very strange. I almost thought that they might be, making the display a little smaller or getting another processor in there or something, but no.
It's more expensive tooling.
Stay tuned to find out more about these OnePlus Buds, folks. Anshel, you want to tell folks where they can find you on the internet, your various social media handle, and tell us a bit more what you do, your Forbes stuff, your more insight and strategy stuff, all that good stuff.
Yes, I am an analyst for More Insights and Strategy. You can find my stuff on our website, which is moreinsightstrategy.com. Also on Forbes. I'm publishing most of my stuff on my social media channels, which is LinkedIn and Threads and Twitter or X.com. I even post stuff on Facebook and Instagram. And then I also just had a report come out today with my thoughts on the Apple 5G modem situation. And yesterday I published part 1 of 3 on my XR reports, which is kind of like the state of XR. So I am very active in publishing reports, and there's lots to read. So please feel free to follow me anywhere you're interested on those topics. I also cover AI PC stuff, which is coming. And yeah, I do lots of mobile, 5G, and XR, and lots of AI stuff. So if you're interested in any of those things, I'm always happy to connect with your audience.
Awesome. Yeah, folks, you should definitely follow Anshel on the socials and read up on these reports. There's some really good stuff in there. When I'm confused about something, I go to Anshel and ask about, like, where do you think this is going? And he always has some kind of answer. It's magic.
It's not always right, but I always have an answer.
Exactly. All right, folks, you know where to find me on the internet. I'm at Tankgirl. That's TNKGRL, like the comic book character. Just drop all the vowels. You'll find my social media handle on Twitter, on Insta, on Threads, on Blue Sky, pretty much everywhere. So please have a conversation with me and Anshel there about this podcast. Follow me, all that good stuff. The podcast lives at mobiletechpodcast.com. We're on all the major platforms. And by the way, ever since Google Podcasts dropped away, I haven't been searchable on YouTube Music, but I'm fixing that right now. So you should be able to find me soon on YouTube Music. I had to jump through a whole bunch of hoops for that to work. They really did not make it easy. It was a real pain. Thanks, Google. But anyway, it's coming. So if you already subscribed, you won't notice any difference. But if you didn't find it in YouTube Music before, stay tuned. So yeah, subscribe, tell your friends about the podcast. And there's a YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. There's some videos there. I've got some unboxings coming of these awesome new Vivo phones that we talked about last week. The V40 series, that purple one, looks super hot with a Zeiss Optics mid-range camera-centric phones. I know that I didn't show them to you last week. So for those of you on Patreon watching this video, just got your treat. Yeah, so you know how YouTube works. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the bell, all that good stuff. And the Patreon, yeah, you want a video version of the podcast in advance, like every week, I have that for you on Patreon for $5 a month. Patreon.com/Tankgirl. That's patreon.com/TNKGRL. So if you want to support me financially, please join the Patreon. There's other tiers there if you want to help out. But if you want the video version, it starts at $5. And, you get extra content. You get bloopers. You get to see our faces. Sometimes I have devices to show you, like these Buds today from OnePlus and these V40 phones. So, yeah, check it out. And if you don't want to use Patreon, there is a link in the show notes to a PayPal button you can click on to make a one-time donation and help me out that way. So please consider all that. And also, I want to thank our sponsor, Mint Mobile. I review a lot of phones, so I'm constantly juggling multiple devices. While that's fun, it also means I'm spending a lot of money for wireless service on multiple SIMs. Thankfully, there's Mint Mobile, and that's who I'm teaming up with for today's podcast. If you want to save money on your wireless service, switch to Mint Mobile. You've probably seen the Mint Mobile ads featuring Ryan Reynolds, but let me quickly tell you how fantastic their service is, especially for tech-savvy early adopters like us. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? In my experience testing phones, Mint Mobile delivers the same data speeds and call quality as the big three for a fraction of the cost. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their eSIMs, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. No more standing around waiting in line at a big wireless store. You can keep your current devices and phone number and easily switch services. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM card free of charge. The whole process only takes 15 minutes, and if you get stuck, Mint has a great customer service team to get you through it. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, plus lightning-fast 5G and free mobile hotspot. Mint will show you how much data you use each month and recommend plans that save you money. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. Use my link, mintmobile.com/mobiletech, to get premium wireless starting at $15 a month. Stop paying more than you need on your wireless bill and start saving big with Mint Mobile. And thanks again, Anshel, for being my guest for another awesome podcast and sharing your wisdom about the Pixel series. Thanks a lot.
Happy to join you, and I look forward to coming back again.
Sounds great. We'll have you on again soon, folks. We'll have another podcast next week, so stay tuned for that. Until then, cheers, everybody.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.